One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. I'm going to say something that I thought would take years and years and years and years and years for me to say as a podcaster. But we're getting close to have creating and published almost 1,000 podcast episodes. I know. 1,000 since 2018. It's really crazy. And the more that I think about it, I've asked so many questions about content creation, about community, about marketing, just so many different things that we have covered on this podcast. And there was one thing that I was like, I know we have talked about this somewhere. Where have we talked about this? And I was literally, up until I just hit record, I was trying to find the previous episodes where we have talked about this, because it's so important. And I was like, I know, like I was having a deja vu moment of, I'm going to record this episode. I know I've talked about it somewhere. Why do I feel like I'm talking about, I'm just talking in circles? Because when you've done 1,000 episodes, y'all, between the Potty Report and the Profit Podcast, we are almost there. But what I wanted to talk about today is timely versus evergreen content. And I wasn't losing my mind, y'all. We have talked about this before, but it was called something else. And the focus of that episode was something entirely. And so I'm going to dive into that. Y'all know I'm going to tell you all the other things that you should go do and go listen to if you have not listened to the previous times that we've talked about this today. But I just think it's so wild that I've almost created 1,000 podcast episodes and we still have so much more to cover. Is it wild and arrogant to just say we're barely scratching the surface of what we can talk about here on this show? I know it sounds so crazy to me, yet here we are for another episode about creating your content with confidence and what that can look like. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach you how to start, launch, and market your content with confidence. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of content creation, this is the show that will help be your time-saving shortcut. So let's get right to it, shall we? Okay, so here's what happened. Like I said, I knew that we have talked about this before. So if you're a longtime listener, you probably even know. You're like, Crystal, I know exactly when you talked about it. It was this time of year, and it wasn't even that long ago. This is the embarrassing part. I was sitting there. If you go into your Buzzsprout account, you can go into stats and then go into episode downloads. And there's an area in that section that allows you to search by title, keyword, like whatever you want to search for. It's usually with whatever's in the title. I guess I should take that back. It's not going to search all your descriptions of your podcast, but it will search all your podcast titles. And I will do this whenever I'm doing research. Like, oh, you know what? I think I talked about this. That would be helpful in this episode. So whenever I'm doing the planning, I want to make sure I'm referencing old episodes. That way, if you're interested in the topic I'm speaking about, you can go follow up and listen to the other ones in case you missed them, right? In case they're ones that if you're a newer listener, you would have no idea. You haven't gone back and listened to every single episode. I hope that you do. Well, that's a lot to ask, right? Like, I hope that you go back and listen to the ones that are most important to you, but I don't want to repeat myself. That is something that I've always really tried hard to do. We will circle back around to the same topics and themes, but I don't want to just regurgitate something I've already said on here. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't like it when other podcasts do that. I know I'm going to say the thing that you're not supposed to say. I do not like it when someone reuses a piece of content that they've already done. Put a fresh spin on it. Like, give it a little paint job. Do something to it that makes it a little bit different, a little bit better, I might add. But I don't like to just regurgitate everything that I already said. It makes no sense to me. With all of that being said, this is the episode about timely versus evergreen content. And there's a reason why we're bringing this up. One reason is because it is that time of year. We're getting closer to back to school, and I always treat back to school time as like a mini New Year's Eve, and I like to pretend that it's a fresh start, because it is. It's a fresh start for my kids. Like, why are the kids the only one they get a fresh start, right? I want to kind of clean up my house and I get things a little bit more organized, because I'm like, okay, everybody's got to find their shoes in the morning. We got to know where backpacks are. I just like treating this as a fresh start in the middle of the year. And so whenever I'm doing that, I'm also doing it in my business, in my content. I'm reevaluating goals. I'm looking at things to making sure that I'm on the right track with what I'm trying to accomplish. And so when I look at my evergreen versus timely, this typically happens at least once a quarter, where I evaluate the content I'm producing. And yes, every single time I create a piece of content, I ask, will this be relevant 5 to 10 years from now? Or is this something that I'm just putting out now and that's what this piece of content is going to be? Because it's fine. It's totally fine. This isn't an episode where I'm going to pit like, okay, timely content in this corner and evergreen content in this corner. We're going to fight to the death, and whichever one wins is what you're going to do. Oh my gosh. What is that claymation show? Please tell me you know what I'm talking about. It was on MTV. It was like the Celebrity Smackdown, where they would pit these clay dolls, or like the claymation anime. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I hope somebody's nodding along and is laughing right now, and you're like, oh my gosh. And it would have the guy that say, let's get it on, and then they would like fight each other. Kids of the 90s, I hope that you're nodding along and you're like, yes, Crystal, we know what you're talking about. It was absolutely ridiculous. Like, RIP MTV. I know MTV's still around, but without TRL, is MTV really anything? I don't think so. Anyway, back to what we're talking about here today. I'm not going to pit timely and evergreen content against one another, and one of them is going to come out the champion. They are both very important to my content strategy, and I use them in very different ways. So like I said, I don't want to repeat myself and tell you all the things if you've already listened to these other episodes where we've talked about timely and evergreen content. I wanted to come out of the gate and let you know which episodes you could go back and listen to. So I'm going to have them linked in the show notes. The show notes for today are crystalprofit.com/episode 363. That is for today. It's where you're going to find all these other episodes that I'm going to mention. But the first one, and it's really funny because all of these have come out in the last 7 months. Here we are, 1st of August, right? These have come out in the last few months, all in 2022, okay? This is a little not evergreen reference. I'm publishing this in August 2022. Therefore, that reference will not be really anything important later. But everything that I've created that talks about this has been in 2022. So that tells me the need for me to repeat the same theme over and over again is pretty important this year. It's pretty important for a few reasons. And I think it's because a lot of people, and this is going to depend on your industry, what you talk about, your topic, your niche, all those things. But I think it's important for you to consider whether what you talk about is timely versus evergreen. So the quick thing to mention is the definitions of those. But before I say that, here's the episode: How to create content for a current and future audience. If you're like, oh my gosh, Crystal, that's the one. That's the one I've been thinking about, because it was the one I was literally losing my mind earlier. I was like, oh my gosh, I know we talked about it. That's what it was. I created this episode about creating content for an audience that you have today or the audience that you're growing that will listen to this in the future. It was kind of one of those, like we were jumping back and forth between present day and future. It was fun. If you like time traveling, like imagination stuff, we definitely did a lot of that in that episode. But it's why it was so important, is because I want you to serve the people that listen to you now, whether it's 2 people or 2,000. I want you to serve those people, but I also want you to be thinking about a future audience. So that's the one you need to go listen to. But now I want to give you the definitions, right? Because you're like, Crystal, you're saying timely, you're saying evergreen. What do you mean? When I say timely content, I am talking about something that is happening now. So think about news. Think about things that are happening in your industry. Think about trendy things. Think about things that are relevant now that may or may not be relevant 5 to 10 years from now. So I imagine, and this was really funny to think about fads or trends that have kind of come and gone over the years. And I think about planking. It's very, very vivid in my imagination. I didn't understand it then. I still don't understand it today. I think about the ice bucket challenge and how big that was that was a while. Like that had a moment in time. That was a really big deal. I think about these TikTok dances that come up and go, right? Like they just explode and then they're kind of gone. And then by the time they get to Instagram and, folks my age are doing it, people are like, y'all, that was so 2 months ago. What are you even doing now? You look dumb. Yeah, this is why I don't do a lot of that stuff. But you see what I'm saying? Like that stuff is fluid. It's moving. It's changing. It is happening really, really quickly. And it may not be something that is going to be around forever. Y'all, TikTok wasn't even mainstream 5 years ago. It was there. It was there. Whether it was Musically, or Musical.ly, however you say it, like that's what it was back in the day. And then it got, turned into TikTok and all this. It's been there. It's been there. But not everyone knew what it was, right? Like you couldn't ask someone of an older generation, do you know what TikTok is? And they're like, it's the sound a clock makes, right? Like they would have no idea. Like me, I would say that's a song by Kesha from the early 2000s. Like this would have been my honest to God answer, because I didn't know what it was 5 years ago. It's timely. Now, maybe it's evergreen. Maybe people are going to know what it is for a long time. But the things that happen on TikTok may not be something that we are talking about 5 to 10 years from now because they're coming and going and you're probably forgetting about what you did last week on the platform. And another way that I think about timely promotions, I was going to say TikTok. I'm like, another thing, see, it's like getting into my like just subconscious now. And I'm just, yeah. Anyway, timely content. I think about live promotions. Okay, this is where you as a content creator, as someone that's doing blog posts, podcast episodes, YouTube, all the content you're creating, timely content is relevant for live promotions. And what I mean by that is something that has an end date and a beginning date. I guess I said that in the reverse order. A cart open and a cart close, right? Like we are looking at something that opens on one day and it closes on another. So when you're creating this, think about in a podcast episode, you're talking about, okay, so on this day, the cart's going to open. But if you're listening to this in a future date after cart close date, then I'm sorry, the offer's not there. Like things can get a little weird, I'm not gonna lie, in the middle of recording a live promotion piece of content because you have to think about the audience you're currently talking to and then consider, well, should I talk about my future audience? Because hopefully, right? Hopefully people don't abandon you as soon as your promotion's over and they no longer listen. Hopefully you have more people listening to you after this promotion is over. And you have to consider, well, do I acknowledge them or do I just pretend that they weren't invited to this party and it's not that big a deal? These are all questions. I don't have answers to any of these questions. These are questions you have to answer for yourself, right? Because something is going to happen. Or even if you have a live event. I have a friend, Anna, shout out Anna. She is the founder of Black Pod Festival. And she does this. And like she had one earlier this year in Atlanta. And she was talking about it. It was leading up to it. But then it happened and now it's over. It doesn't mean it's never going to happen again. No, she's doing amazing things over there. I hope she does it every single year. Multiple times a year would be amazing. But she had it and then it was over. So the content that she created leading up to that is like, okay, well, this is kind of documenting what was going on at that time. There's the timely aspect of it. So it was coming, then it happened, now it's over. So that is how you can think about timely content. So if you're launching a course, you're launching an event, you're launching a book, you're launching a thing, whatever it is, and you're creating content leading up to that, I think that's amazing. One, please do this. I encourage you to do this. But I also want you to think about the future pacing of your audience and what it's going to sound like to them whenever someone brand new discovers what you're doing or what you've done in the past. And you could choose to acknowledge that audience or not. Again, this is totally up to you. I'm not going to tell you a right way or wrong way because if you've been around here, you know I don't believe that there are rules in content creation. I think that there are guidelines that we can stick to, but there are no rules. You can literally do whatever the heck that you want to do, okay? I cannot stress this enough. If someone tells you there is only one way to create content, please run in the other direction, okay? Because I don't buy into that strategy whatsoever. So that's timely. Those are timely things. Now let's talk about evergreen. Now, when it comes to evergreen, it doesn't matter if someone hears what you're saying, what they're going to read on your blog, what they're going to watch on your YouTube, any of that. It does not matter when they hear it. It is still relevant. So someone could listen to this podcast today because, meta or not, this was created as an evergreen piece of content. I created this for an audience that could listen today when you're listening to it, or 5 years from now when someone else listens to it. Because what I'm saying today is evergreen content. I know we got really Russian doll nesting like into each other on that, but it's so important that you distinguish, and maybe you even have that as part of your content strategy. It's like, you know what? I have a checkbox that says this is evergreen or this is timely. And maybe you're asking, Crystal, why does this matter? Why does it matter whether it's timely or evergreen? Well, I believe it's important because as someone that listens to shows, you should know this. I listen to a lot of podcasts. Like even still today with my limited time and resources, I still listen to a lot of podcasts. I said limited time and resources. I didn't mean resources because I mean, all you need is your phone. I got my phone. That's not like my resources time. And I still find time to listen to podcasts. I still find time to listen and watch YouTube videos that I think are important, that are relevant to me. And so I know that that is how other people, which I know I'm not everybody has different habits of how they consume content, but I also know people will find someone, go back to every single piece of content they've ever created. You've done this. You're nodding along right now, aren't you? Yes. Just say yes out loud. Yes. Okay. Maybe you just freak somebody out because you're like, well, this chick on the podcast told me to say yes and I did it and now it feels weird, awkward. Hi, can we be friends? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you don't want to be friends with the person that just saw you say yes to yourself, but you see what I'm saying, right? Like, this is so important for you to understand because the evergreenness of your content is what feeds the SEO monster. And you've heard me talk about SEO if you've been around here. It's the thing that everybody loves to hate because it's complex, it's complicated, but it is the thing that I go back to time and time again because SEO has been the thing that has helped me get further faster with my content. Because SEO, at the end of the day, and I'm going to link to all the things. If you're like, Crystal, I don't know what SEO is, we don't have time for that in this episode. I'm going to link to resources that you need to go check out. Look, I'm going to add it to my notes right now. Add SEO resources, because I just threw that one in there. I wasn't even planning on talking about SEO. But at the end of the day, it's why so much of my content is evergreen, because I want that SEO juice. I want to feed that SEO monster. Like, today's episode is why I spent 20 minutes in Buzzsprout saying, oh my God, I know I've talked about timely versus evergreen content. I know that I've talked about this. And then I go back and I'm like, oh, it's because I did not title that podcast episode that I did in January 2022. I did not call it timely versus evergreen content. It's why we're creating this new piece of content today. I'm not regurgitating. I'm not just saying everything that I've said before, but I am reinventing this idea because it is that important. Because solid foundational principles, like what we're talking about here today, don't change. Timely versus evergreen, this title, it's evergreen by definition because people will keep asking this question. When someone is brand new to content, when they've been doing it for a while and they're considering, well, what's timely versus evergreen? Like, this is a question people will still have 5 years from now because it is kind of one of those marketing questions that you have to think about as a marketer. And I know maybe you're like, Crystal, I'm not a marketer. I'm a podcaster. I'm a YouTuber. I post stuff on social media. I write to my email list. Like, I'm a blogger. You are a marketer. If you are trying to convince someone to consume your content, you better be a damn good marketer too. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. It's not. Sorry. Like, tough love, like shoving in here in the middle of the episode, but you have to be really good at marketing. Maybe that's why you're listening to this podcast. You want some more marketing principles and how to do it, but marketing is one of those foundational principles. Like, marketing doesn't change. Now, hang on, because you're like, wait, hang on, Crystal. We were just talking about TikTok. TikTok, what? Like, okay, you got me there. Marketing at its core does not change from the idea that you are trying to convince someone who may or may not know about the thing that you want them to know about, and then you want them to do a thing, right? Like, this is, you have a product, a service, a podcast, a YouTube channel that you want someone to consume. and you have to tell people about it. And one of the things about marketing that I love that never, ever, ever, ever changes, this has been around since the dawn of time, is word of mouth marketing. It is legitimately the most evergreen principle in marketing that we can have. Now, does that ebb and flow and twist and turn with, you have email marketing, you have direct mail marketing, you have phone marketing, telemarketing, I guess what's called telemarketing. You have so many different ways of sharing the principle of marketing. But y'all, word of mouth never goes out of style. That is evergreen. Word of mouth is me watching a movie. We actually just got back from watching BJ Novak's new movie, Vengeance. Yeah, there's a little timely plug, right? Because maybe that won't be relevant 5 years from now. But my husband and I just went and saw Vengeance. It was really good. It was really, really good. I love BJ Novak. If you've been around here, you know how much I love The Office. Office Ladies, my number one podcast. Love it so much. But I love this movie. And here I am telling you about it. I'm telling you about it. I could tell you about what I loved about BJ Novak's writing or Issa Rae's acting. Oh my gosh, she was so good. Or Ashton Kutcher and his absurdity, or the fact that all of this was set in Texas and the references for Texas, like the inside Texan jokes, were so good. So good. And I'm sitting here telling you about it. This is marketing. This is the basic principle of word of mouth marketing. And again, it is evergreen. It's not going anywhere. It is not. You probably told someone recently how much you love a brand new salad dressing that you bought at the store, or some sort of chips that you have, or your brand new socks that you bought at Costco. And you're like, you know what? They were only $7. I didn't think they were going to be that good, but they're really comfortable. This is all word of mouth marketing. And I feel like maybe I just need to do another episode on word of mouth marketing, because now I'm getting all fired up about it. And I have so many other marketing ideas that I want to share with you, but we're getting off topic. Let's go back to the timely and evergreen, because I want to wrap this up in a pretty little bow for you. Because like I said from the beginning, I don't think that one of them is better than the other. I believe that you need both. If you are someone that is going to sell products, sell services, do affiliate promotions, have sponsors on your podcast, or, create a YouTube channel that blows up and it goes viral and all the things, you're going to need to know about evergreen versus timely content. And at the end of the day, I wanted to share with you some of the questions that go through my mind whenever I'm creating a piece of content. Because remember, I was like, oh, okay, you could add a little checkbox in your content calendar that says this is timely, this is evergreen. You could put a T or an E next to it. That way you know. The reason why is because it's all going to depend on your goals. What are your goals? That's another episode that we're going to link to in the podcast. Hang on, I'm add it to my notes. What are your podcast goals? I think I have multiple episodes about this. We have launch goals, overall goals, like all the things. I have lots of episodes on goals. But depending on your goals, you're going to decide, is this timely or evergreen?
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
For me, it depends on a few things. One, it depends on the platform and that platform's audience. Here's an example. YouTube versus a podcast. So YouTube, in my experience and the way I create content on YouTube, YouTube is better for an evergreen content approach. It's why it is keyword heavy. It is why it is titled the way that it is. It is why I concentrate on the tags and the descriptions and how I name everything and very strategic things that I do on YouTube. That's evergreen, baby. That is an evergreen machine if I've ever seen one. My podcast, it's a little bit different. My podcast is a combination of both. You will see lots of content here that is evergreen, that will be relevant 5 to 10 years from now if you happen upon this podcast at that time. But it's also me talking about current promotions. Give you an example. Here's a little timely plug for you. I did a promotion in June called BC Stack. I do it every summer. It's something that has been a lot of fun to do, but that has a very clear cart open, cart close, comes around once a year, it's here, and then it's gone. And I create content about that. I will do it on my podcast and on my YouTube channel, but mostly on the podcast because it's where I share that information, because I believe this audience is more of a timely, like you're going to see the notification in your phone or wherever you're listening and you're going to say, okay, Crystal put a new episode out today. I'm going to go listen. That is how the behavior of podcast listeners tend to be. YouTube, I'm subscribed to all kinds of YouTube channels. I don't get any of those notifications. I don't even care. I don't even care when they put out new videos. This is just me. Again, this is my behavior. But I don't go back to a lot of YouTube videos or YouTube channels and immediately like, oh my gosh, I have like 20 new videos. I will go back and try to find videos that I need right now. The evergreen stuff that maybe they even put out 2 years ago that I'm like, oh my gosh, I love those people. I don't even care if this is an old video. I love what they have to say. I'm going to go watch it. So that's how I look at the platform and the audience perspective to decide, is this going to be timely? Is it going to be evergreen? And then the next thing that I consider is, what am I trying to do 6 to 12 months from now? Now, I don't ask this question, obviously, before I create any type of content. I'm not always like playing the guessing game of like, where are we going to be? Like, I don't have a crystal ball, pun intended, right? I don't have a crystal ball to say, well, this is where I'm going to be pretty soon. Y'all, if you've been listening, if you've been around here, you know that things have changed in the last 6 months. Like, things have changed drastically around here in the last 6 months. I was creating 2 podcast episodes around here. I was creating 3 YouTube videos. I was creating all kinds of social posts, emails to my list, like all the things. It was content on steroids around here 6 months ago. Things have changed dramatically. And so what I like to do, and you know this, I plan my content a quarter at a time. I like to look at what's on the horizon and how important is the topic that I'm speaking about going to be in a few months. And the reason why I bring that up is I think about the holidays, right? Because I can see based on trends of my content. If you're new to content, you won't have this data and statistics to look at, but I know the behaviors of my audience tend to ebb and flow around the holidays. Like typically in the beginning of December, it'll be pretty busy and I'll see my numbers pretty much around the same. And then right around December 21st until around January 3rd, things take a step back. Like things go a lot slower and I don't freak out about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like nobody's listening. Everybody's abandoning me. What do I do? What do I do? I'm like, oh yeah, my audience is probably driving on the road. Maybe they're actually talking to their family and hanging out with them. Maybe they're traveling and maybe they've listened to one episode, but they haven't had time to catch up on these other ones. That's okay. It's okay. Like I don't hold myself accountable for what my audience is doing in that time. I give myself grace to just go with the flow and just say, okay, you know what? I think that I'm going to create a piece of content that is going to be timely because I want to speak directly to my audience and say, hey, I know you're probably traveling right now when you're listening to this because I'm releasing this in December. It's the middle of the holidays, but I just want to, share that I'm thinking about you. And, I hope you have a good holiday, or that you are having, I don't know, something heartwarming, right? Like, I feel like my Grinch heart is here right now, and it's like it's 3 sizes too small, and I can't even think of something really sweet to say. But just wait till December. I'm thinking of something good. Okay, I'm cooking it up now. It's going to be great by the time I say it in December. But you get what I'm saying. I think it's so important for you to evaluate timely versus evergreen. Maybe it doesn't even have that much weight on you, right? You're like, Crystal, this isn't even relevant for me. I don't even think about this as much. Well, I think about content all the time. Every single day, literally every single day, I'm thinking about content. And so the questions that I have, I can only assume other people have them too. And so I just want to share with you my thoughts on timely versus evergreen content and a few things for you to consider. Again, we have so many resources for you to listen to in the show notes. Go to crystalprofit.com/episode 363 to find all of them. There's one for how to create content for a current and future audience. I'm also including 2 really great episodes we did earlier this year about content creation definitions you need to know. It's actually a part 1 and part 2 series, because that is just a great one. Like, talk about foundational principles. If you want an example of evergreen content, those are basic, baseline, evergreen pieces of content. Then I'll add in the ones about SEO resources and ones about goals, because those are all super, super important when you're looking at your content overall. Y'all, we got through this. Oh my gosh. I feel like I could have ranted for so many other marketing things but you know what? Here we are. We're at the end. I'm going to save that. We're going to talk about word of mouth marketing again, because it's one of those that, things just come up whenever we're here. And I think about other ideas. And like I said, we're almost at 1,000 episodes, and I'm still going because I love this so much. I love it so, so much. So thank you for being here with me today, and I hope that you learned something. I would love it if you would take a screenshot wherever you're listening to this, tag me on Instagram stories, let me know what you thought about today's episode, if it was helpful, if you learned something, or if you're like, oh my gosh, she talked about evergreen versus timely content again, and I had to hear it again. But maybe it was maybe third time's the charm, right? Maybe you needed to hear this to really let it sink in. I hope that works for you. But if you're brand new around here, make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you are listening. And remember, as always, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.